If you look into the rules and you see that when you close a credit card account, you're going to lose all of your points or miles, obviously you are going to want to transfer all those points out before you close the credit card so you do not lose those miles.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Abroaders Travel Podcast, your weekly meetup with thousands of entrepreneurs, hustlers, creators, nomads, ninjas, wanderers, and world changers, all seeking to build the skills and connections to live a life without borders. If you want to learn more about what we do or download our entire podcast archive, check out the website, abroaders.com.
Happy Wednesday morning and welcome to another episode of the Abroaders Podcast. I'm Erik here with AJ, and today we are going to be talking about building out the Abroaders service. We've got some key learnings to share with you guys we've got some key learnings from working with dozens of customers and helping them earn and redeem frequent flyer miles, and also have some valuable, sort of insight into our business and our operations and how we're organizing this that should hopefully be really helpful for the folks out there that are trying to organize this themselves, earn free travel for themselves or family and friends. So let's jump into it. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, man. So you're still in Ho Chi Minh City, right?
Yeah, still in Ho Chi Minh, really enjoying it here. And AJ, you're back in Detroit.
I am back in Detroit. The weather is getting a little bit colder, so I guess I'll meet my maker in a month or two when it starts to snow.
I don't think you're going to have to wait a couple of months for that. But
yeah, actually, that'll probably happen sometime next week.
All right. So I guess to kick this off, we talked about this a little bit before we started recording here, but I think, we wanted to share this because we think that, first of all, it's going to be really valuable for travelers, even if you're doing this on your own. The framework that we've set up for managing frequent flyer travel for a whole bunch of customers is really just a bigger version of what you should be doing on your own to sort of track key metrics, make sure that you're earning the right type of points for where you want to travel. So there should be some great takeaways for that. And then we're also going to kind of have a higher level focus on how all the pieces fit together. We've gone into a lot of detail on things like booking rules and availability, and all the little pieces of information you have to keep track of. So hopefully this will help you guys kind of see at a high level how all those pieces fit together. And then also we're now looking at a pretty decent amount of aggregate information from a bunch of different people. And so this will kind of give you guys an idea of what's working across the board and sort of the trends you should expect, how much value you should be getting, and hopefully give you guys sort of a roadmap to follow as well. Also on the business side, we're going to hopefully share a little bit about our insights into how and why we chose this business and sort of our process for testing and doing market research, seeing what was available out there and how we could position ourselves in the market to have a unique business. We spent a lot of time with sort of market validation and testing out different pricing and different customer selection. And then we're also going to get into a little bit about our strategy for growing and scaling the business to serve thousands of people.
Yeah, so to give you guys just a quick insight on who the service is for and what we're doing with it, it's pretty much for people that just do not want to keep up with all the travel hacking stuff, or they're just way too busy, or they've got a business that spends a bunch of money and they just don't know what to do with all their miles. So, typically the people we work with, they're U.S. citizens, they've got credit above 680, and they spend at least $1,000 per month. Now, there's a difference there between who we're working with and some of you people out there doing it yourself. You don't have to have credit above 680. You don't need to spend over $1,000 a month to do it. But those are the people we're going after just because we can help them the most and we can give them the biggest return. And that means we can turn a nice profit.
Yeah. So we're going to get into that actually a little bit further in the episode as well, sort of our pricing strategy and how we're trying to base that off of value. But before we get into sort of the nuts and bolts of the business, I want to talk a little bit about our methodology for keeping all this information up to date and run through some of the different things that we're tracking. Because I think a lot of this applies to folks that are trying to earn and redeem miles as well. You want to try and keep information as well organized as possible. So one of the earliest things that we did is we set up an RSS feed with a few of the blogs. If you crawl through our show notes for the last 20 or 30 episodes, you're going to find links to all the blogs that you could possibly need to be following. And we've started to database the information and set it in some categories around how they impact your redemptions and your earning points. So starting with the redemption side, we're keeping track of booking rules across about 20 or 25 frequent flyer programs. And so that means things like the change fees. So if you want to change the city or the date, how much it's going to cost. How much fuel surcharges are usually getting added to award tickets. So that obviously increases the amount of money that you have to pay out of pocket. And then also things like booking fees. So if there's a fee to book by phone, whether you can hold awards, which is really important if availability is tight and you want to confirm your plans, get everything else set up like your hotels and other connecting flights. It's really valuable to know which programs you can hold awards. And then things like partner airlines, which airlines you can travel. Can you mix first and business class with economy on the same award? Can you mix different partner airlines on the same award? All of those things depend on each individual program. And so depending on what type of points you have to know what the rules are. And we've got an up-to-date database for about 25 programs on that right now.
Yeah, so the next thing on the redeeming side is routing rules. So we're helping people earn all these miles in these different currencies, but it's key for us and for you as travel hackers to really understand the routing rules so you can stretch those miles as far as possible. So we're talking about knowing the rules on stopovers with the different programs, one-ways, open jaws. Just for example, this week we got one of our customers an extra one-way flight for free just because we understood the routing rules in the program. And on top of, the routing rules and getting people the most bang for their buck in regards to the miles is we really want to keep an eye on the airline routes and the products. So, where an airline alliance hub is in each region, route maps for each global alliance, what flights are operated, and which hard products are installed. So what that means is we actually look into the actual plane that our customers are going to be on, and we know what that first class seat's like, we know what that business class seat is like, and we can make a decision if it's worth it to use all those miles. Because some airlines are way better than others. I mean, Eric, you were just on Cathay Pacific, and they've got a pretty famous first class compared to especially a lot of the American airlines.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the big key, right? So my flight was from Chicago to Tokyo, and that flight on Cathay Pacific is totally different than doing the same flight in first class on American Airlines. So the product is just not nearly as nice. And so that's a really key component is which airline has the best product on a flight going to the destination. And also, the other key is that not all the time, especially with business class, a lot of airlines are in the process of upgrading their planes. And so you've maybe got an airline like Cathay Pacific, for example, where about half of their Airbus 340s are upgraded with their brand new herringbone business class, and the other ones have the old business class that's maybe more of a recliner seat. And so that happens a lot where, Tuesday and Thursday, they've got the old flight, and Monday, Wednesday, Friday, they've got the new flight. And so keeping track of that helps us to really deliver more value and get more value for ourselves when we're booking those flights.
Yeah, man, you want to get into award availability?
All right. So award availability is just basically the inventory of seats that you can book with your miles. So obviously not all the seats that you're able to buy with cash are going to be available for models. And so we were looking to figure out which are the best tools for us to do that research. And then also, again, databasing information by program to figure out how airlines are managing that award space. So for example, there are some programs that release a lot more space to their own frequent flyer members than they do to their partner airlines. Examples are Lufthansa and Singapore. So what they do is Lufthansa's program is called Miles and More. And if you have miles and more miles, you've got access to a whole bunch more seats than, say, if you had United Miles, which is still a partner of Lufthansa and technically can book on their flights, but they don't have the same inventory. And the same thing is the case with Singapore Airlines. So knowing those things makes it possible if we know somebody wants to travel at a very, tight time, like around Thanksgiving or Christmas, and it's going to be more difficult to find seats. It's better to have in those programs, some points where the airline's going to be opening up extra space for their own members. A few other things are sort of how the award calendar works. We touched on this a little bit last week, but some airlines are really good about releasing that space as soon as the calendar opens. So, for example, Cathay Pacific will release at least one first class seat at the very beginning, no matter what. And sometimes there's some airlines that'll release two. And so knowing those windows and knowing when the calendar gets loaded makes it possible to grab that space before anybody else does. And on the other end of it, some airlines are really good at opening up space close to booking. So if their flight isn't sold out, if it's not full, there's some airlines that do a really good job of opening up that space in the last week or so to make it available for people with points. Some airlines don't do that quite so well. And so knowing which ones are which save a lot of time in terms of looking for those seats, only to find out that even though the flight's going out half empty, the airline's not giving away any of those seats for miles. And then I guess the last thing, we talked a little bit about this on last week's show about British Airways and using those Avios points to hold Qantas seats for American Airlines. We want to keep track of, do those canceled tickets go back into inventory? So do the frequent flyer miles, if you cancel an award ticket, is it possible to rebook that award ticket right away?
Yeah, so the final part about redeeming is just understanding the award chart. So which airline's using zone-based or distance-based and fixed-to-ticket price. So, Southwest Airlines, they do the fixed-to-ticket price. British Airways has that, distance-based chart, and then, say, American or United, they've got the zone-based chart. So you really need to understand which airlines and which programs have, which charts, and also need to keep tabs on seasonal discounts or discounts for having particular credit cards. One of the hugest things with award charts is just understanding the peak, standard, and saver pricing, because we all know that the saver pricing is where it's at, and once you get up to what they claim to be standard, some pretty heavy inflation, sometimes close to double. Also, you got to know what the correct prices for each chart are, because sometimes, if you're booking over the phone, an agent may actually not understand. When I booked with United a little while ago, they tried to overcharge me, and I had to, have them look up where I knew that the proper chart was and confirm that. And then finally, what are airline websites doing as far as pricing goes? Are there any errors? Like, for example, now Delta's stopovers, there's a bunch of errors on their system because they're making some big IT changes based on some program changes they're going to have in the future. So keeping tabs on all that and understanding how to work around it, and most importantly, just know it exists so you don't, fall into the trap.
Yeah, all really good stuff. So the next piece is that we're also keeping track of a lot of information on the earning side. So to help make it possible to maximize the number of points that our customers can earn in a 3 or 6 month period. And so the first thing is obviously, what are the top opportunities with credit cards? So which cards, and often, as we've talked about on the show, there's multiple links floating around out there for the same credit card. So one link could be offering 30,000 miles, another link could be offering 50 or 60. And so keeping track of which are the best links, and also what the standards you need to meet or the requirements you have to meet to earn those bonuses. So sometimes, the cards that are giving away more points, maybe an extra 20,000 points, but you also have to spend quite a bit more money in 3 or 6 months to be able to earn that bonus. And so keeping track of those and making sure that we've got an offer that fits your spending ability, so that you're not, running that risk of not spending enough to earn the miles or spending more money than you otherwise would, because obviously you want to keep this all within your regular spending and just leverage that power to earn miles rather than spend more money than you would anyways. So a few other bank rules to keep in mind here. There's a lot of cards out there that you can earn the bonus more than once for a particular card. And so we want to keep track of how long you have to wait. So, if you're going to make a second or third application, the U.S. Airways card from Barclays is a really good example of that. I've got 3 of those, and I've also got 2 of the Citi Executive Advantage card. And for those, the rule is about 60 to 70 days that you have to wait between applications. Also, whether you can apply for a business and personal card from the same bank on the same day, and how long you need to wait between applications for the same type of card. So if you're applied for the Chase Sapphire from Citibank, Chase Sapphire from Chase, then how long do you need to wait before you can apply for a different card from Chase that's also a personal card?
Yeah, keeping with the banks, this is more bank information. Some key things to understand and know is, which credit bureau do they pull from? So we've got some clients that everyone knows the way credit works. It's just kind of funky, and your experience score might be really low for some reason. So understanding which credit bureau they pull from will give us confidence to suggest the right card for people based on the credit reports. And also what's the reconsideration phone number? You always have to keep that on tabs, because a lot of these airline credit cards they require either good or excellent credit. So if you're younger and don't have established credit, or you've got a couple blemishes, you're maybe going to have to call reconsideration. And on top of that, not only knowing the number to call, but when you call reconsideration, what do you do? What's the strategy? And that's something that we work with our clients on. And I mean, Erik's got a bunch of great recordings of just tutorials on how to school the people in reconsideration, and how to convince them that you just really want this card because you'd love to do business with that bank, as opposed to bank a bunch of miles. And then another thing is there's often a discrepancy between business card approval and personal card approval. So, United's got a personal and a business card. Chase has a personal and a business card. There's some Amex stuff as well. And sometimes there's a distinction between how hard the business card is to get approved for. And, the last thing we want to do with our clients is have them running around applying for 4 cards and getting denied for 3 of them.
Right. Yeah. And that was actually a key learning. That was kind of an interesting takeaway that we had at the beginning is, we hadn't had any trouble getting approved for business cards from Chase, but we do have a business that's been established for more than a year. And so, we had some folks sign up for a couple of cards and quickly realized that they were going to get asked a lot more questions about, what their business was and how much money they were making and so forth if they didn't have their business established for over a year. And so just knowing that about Chase made it easier to start with a different bank, start with Citibank's business cards, and wait until the person's business got a little bit more established before going after those Chase accounts.
Yeah, so keeping kind of with the banks as far as earning goes is understanding the different currencies from the different banks. So right now we're going to talk about transferable currencies. So it's key to understand who the transfer partners are. So we kind of you can reverse engineer it. You understand the different programs, you understand their charts, you understand how they price awards, and then you need to know which points can transfer to those programs, based on our clients. If we've got clients that are only going to Asia, and then we've got other clients only going to South America, there's going to be different currencies we're going to want them to earn. So understanding where your points can go, an obvious one is, always know United points. You can top up those with your Chase points. Amex can go to, Aeroplan, Air Canada's, or Delta. And then as far as the transfers go, you got to know the transfer times to actually receive the points. Chase is pretty good. That's almost always instant, but there's some other ones, and there's some tricky rules, like, what is it, Singapore? There's like a bigger lag when you transfer to Singapore than other airlines. Some of the Amex partners can take up to a few days.
And so, we've been really good, I think, fortunate to have access to a ton of aggregate data, right? So, we've both got a pretty decent stash for the 3 main transferable currencies, Chase Ultimate Rewards, Amex, and Starwood. And we've got a little bit of a feel, but, Starwood's got 27 partners. And so to know how long it takes to transfer to each one of those, if you're just using your own data and just your own experience, it's going to take a really long time to have enough points to transfer to every airline and have that opportunity to kind of see how the times work. So there's some good resources online, and we're also getting like a much better real data from customer transfers and seeing how long it's taking and building out our processes and booking service around those limitations.
Yeah, and I even forgot to mention this, a couple things to be aware of. It's good and bad. Are there any transfer bonuses? And also, you got to understand, is it a one-to-one transfer partner, meaning, for example, one Chase point is one United mile, or do you take a little bit of a hit and you only get, 8/10 of a point? Yeah, are there limits on how many miles you can transfer? For example, Delta, you can only transfer 250,000 miles per calendar year. So, from our perspective, if we've got a client that has a bunch of Amex points and we've already booked a couple flights with them and we've transferred some points to Delta, we can't rely on that huge bank of Amex points to go to Delta to book that flight. We've got to be prepared for that. And the last thing you need to know with the transferable currencies is what happens when you close a credit card account. So if you look into the rules and you see that when you close a credit card account, you're going to lose all of your points or miles, obviously you are going to want to transfer all those points out before you close the credit card so you do not lose those miles.
Awesome, man. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about some of the tools that we're using. Obviously, there's a lot of complexity that's in here, a lot of different pieces to keep track of. So I want to step back and try and 80-20 this and kind of help you guys look into how you can build an organized system for yourself to keep track of the parts of this that are going to be important for you to hit your travel goals. So first of all, one of the nice things is that you're not trying to keep track of this across a whole bunch of people. So if you're doing this on your own, you just want to keep track of where you're planning to travel and set up a simple spreadsheet. We use Google Docs even still. We're building ourselves an application that's going to manage this a little bit more elegantly, but Google Docs is a great tool, just spreadsheets, or you can use Excel to keep track of all the different components. So the first one is going to be the cards that you have. You want to have just a row in a spreadsheet for every single credit card that you've got, and you're going to keep track of things like which bank, what date you got approved for that card, what your annual fee is, when that annual fee is going to be due, and just keep all that information in one place so that you can always go back and reference it. Because when you've got 15 or 20 credit cards, it's really important to stay on top of those annual fees so you can get them waived and make sure that you're earning new bonuses when new products come out if you're eligible, to get that bonus again or to apply for a slightly different card that allows you to still earn the bonus. The next thing that we're doing is tracking award redemptions. And this is really key because it's so important to know how much value you're getting for those flights. And this is one of the parts also that's quite a bit more personalized. And one of the challenges we have as a business is that not every customer values flights in the same way. So for example, AJ, you might just want to get to South America and it's only a 9-hour flight and you don't really care if you're in business or first class. You just want to get there as cheap as possible. And so if I get you a flight for $50, your estimation of the value of those miles is that you're saving, maybe $1,000 on a round trip ticket. But the person that was already going to buy a business class ticket, they've got a meeting down there, maybe their boss is paying for the ticket and they got to show up rested and ready to go. Their value of getting that ticket could be as high as $3,000 or $4,000 for that round trip ticket on miles, and it's still going to cost them $50 in taxes and fees with the right program. So the key takeaway here is when you're tracking this, the best thing that you can do is mark down how many miles you paid and mark down how much you paid in taxes and fees. So you've got the number of points and the number of dollars that your actual award ticket costs you. And then you take the cost of buying the cheapest ticket that you can find on Orbitz. And so, that's where the example comes in. If you're only going to buy an economy ticket anyways, that's the pricing you should use. But if you're considering buying that business class ticket, you can kind of mark off how much would you have paid for a business class ticket and then subtract the amount that you actually had to pay in taxes and fees from that retail price of the ticket. And that's going to tell you how much you're saving. And so you can kind of break that down and figure out how much each point is worth to you. And that's going to really inform your decisions moving forward as far as, is it worth paying this annual fee to earn this credit card bonus? And it can become really clear, if you're going to get 50,000 American miles for signing up for a card, the $95 annual fee is not waived. So you're just looking at that cost. Oh, I'm paying $100 here, but I'm also getting a one-way in business class to South America. That's worth $100. Obviously, that's a simple example where it's pretty clear. But as you start to keep track of that and just that simple metric of knowing how much you're saving on each flight and how much each point currency is worth can be really huge to make good decisions.
Yeah, man, that's a really good point. All right, so Eric just kind of gave you the overview of how we track things and some key metrics. So we're going to get into a kind of a high-level business discussion now about how we decided to get into the market and go from being hobbyists into actually having a business, and some stuff with the pricing and other thing that you entrepreneurs or aspiring business people may find interesting. So the first thing is validation, the genesis story, how we actually had a business. So Eric and I came into travel hacking just as hobbyists. Eric was the first guy to pick it up, and he's like, man, this stuff is great. We can save a bunch of money. We can travel the world. So we got into doing this just for ourselves, and we were serving only our own travel needs. And then we, kind of became curious. We're like, this is so valuable. Who's making money? Where are the opportunities? And when we looked at it, the people that were making money were obviously the banks and the airlines. The banks will always get paid. There's some bloggers doing, affiliate stuff where they'll give a bunch of great information and then have some affiliate links to credit cards that they'll get a little kickback from the banks on. And then there's, booking services, people that will take somebody that's got existing miles, and they will put them to use for them. So there really wasn't somebody that is doing what we're doing now that did everything from the earning to the redeeming on a subscription level. And then other players in the game, there's the related sites, Credit Karma, Award Wallet, TripIt, Seat Guru, and we figure that we could leverage all of these pre-existing sites and these great tools and roll them into one nice full service. So, we spent enough time going through all these sites to get the info we needed for our own travel goals and then for customers, and then ultimately realized that there was just a massive opportunity. If we could save ourselves this much money, we could definitely save other people money as well, and ask them to pay us for that.
Yeah. And so, I think the market research was really interesting on this, just because, you get into a spot where you feel like, well, gosh, so many people know about this. There's 500,000 people on Flyer Talk that are contributing to this massive forum about how to travel hack, how to earn more points and redeem points. And so we started to look at that, and it kind of worried me at first, right? We talked about, like, why isn't anybody else doing this? Like, is there not a market here? Are all these people too cheap to pay someone to help? And so one of the key things that we wanted to focus on was differentiation. So what can we do that sets ourselves apart and lets us select our customers, right? And so we wanted to, as AJ said, aggregate all of the different tools that are out there and put everything in one place. And so we realized that nobody's really guiding people through the steps for earning, right? Those booking services, you have to come to those with your own miles. And they're not really incentivized by your long-term goals. So kind of there's a little bit of a catch-22 there, in that the booking service generally gets paid by redeeming your award, right? As soon as you approve them, whatever itinerary they find with your miles, they get paid. And so they have this incentive to use your best miles, even if you're going to need those miles later. So if you've got a couple of currencies and there's one that's going to take a little bit more work, they'll usually skip doing the more work and just redeem and get you off the books. And so we realized that if we took a more inclusive approach to this, we could actually really outdo the booking services in terms of delivering value. And we could be more efficient, because if we started with helping people earn the miles, then we'd already make sure that they had the right miles in their account before they got to the booking service part of it. So by kind of building the relationship with the customer earlier on, before other companies were doing it, it actually made us more efficient and lowered our costs over time. And it also helped us deliver a ton more value, because people aren't showing up with the wrong kind of miles for the trip that they want.
Yeah, and just from an entrepreneurial perspective, this approach is not exclusive to a travel hacking business. You can apply this method of differentiation to really any business you have. It just, if you understand the landscape and see the mechanics of the industry, it seems there's almost always a different angle you can take, and we're fortunate too, because there's a lot of action in travel hacking and bloggers, but it's really not a saturated market. It's not like being a web designer where everybody and their brother's web designer now. And just to reiterate what Eric said about customer selection, that's kind of something that we've kind of tried and have validated now ourselves, because it was a concern. We were thinking we were doing this originally to save as much money as possible and kind of stick it in the banks and airlines shorts. And why would somebody just say, you know what, I'm going to just stop and I'm just going to pay these guys to do it for me. But I think also the nature of the people we can help the most tend to be pretty good clients. Like we said, people that spend a decent amount of money. They may have a business. Typically, I mean, Eric, give me your opinion on this, but I've found typically having another entrepreneur or a business person as a client is typically better than just somebody that has a more traditional job. I think there's a much more a lot more empathy and understanding.
Well, that's really interesting because a lot of our early adopters are entrepreneurs. I mean, we've got quite a good network of other location independent entrepreneurs, and so when those folks kind of found out what we were doing, I think there was a lot of curiosity there. Going back to your point about the cheap customers versus the customers that are trying to save time rather than money as much. I think it was really easy for us at the beginning to envision that everybody was going to be the broke college student that we were when we started out with this as a hobby, and sort of be like, why would I pay an extra $300 when I can figure all this shit out? It can't be that hard. And what we realized is that the target market is actually much bigger than that. And because there's so much value on the table, there's a lot of people, definitely the entrepreneurs and people that own their own business or have high spending are really great customers in the sense that we can deliver a lot of value. But also, people that are in a traditional job, I think those will be a lot of our sort of second phase of customers because, those people are often flying on the company's dime quite a bit, and they get some limited vacation time a year and want to be able to, take advantage of that and have a really awesome trip with their significant other or their friends and be able to do that in business or first class. So I think, that's one of the things we're discovering here is that the profile of who our potential customers are and is kind of shifting. It's a moving target. And once we get that scale a little bit higher, I think we're going to really be able to choose which people are the best to work with. Bringing this back to pricing, I want to talk a little bit with you about how we sort of shaped our pricing. And let's start out by just admitting that we started doing this and we had no idea how much to charge. We're really in a great position.
Oh, absolutely no clue. I mean, it was just kind of, I mean, I can remember some of those early conversations. There was no real method. We had no information to base it on. We're like, hey, man, what do you think is a good price?
Yeah.
For 1 month or 6 months, or like just we were throwing shit at a wall and seeing what stuck.
And so I think to start, we're in a really good position with our pricing because our product doesn't need to take money from the customer. And what I mean by that is we get paid because we can help you save big money by managing the details and get more value from the airlines and get more value from the banks. And so because the system's pretty complicated, obviously we went through a lot of stuff at the beginning here, we can be more efficient than 99% of people out there. So maybe you only save yourself $1,000 a year by doing it alone. We look at that customer profile and we're trying to figure out, can we save this guy $3,000 a year? And if that's the case, then we can charge $1,000 a year and the customer still saves an extra $1,000 more than he would have on his own. So it's one of those scenarios where our pricing can be win-win, and we just had to find a formula where we could really gauge how much value we were going to be able to give each customer and then set prices based on that.
Yeah, exactly. It's definitely not a zero sum game. There's so many opportunities within travel hacking that if you're doing it on your own, I mean, it's really tough to realize the full potential and value that's out there.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about how we got a finger on the right stats and the right sort of performance indicators to predict how much value we could deliver. So let's imagine, we've got a hypothetical new customer that comes to us and says, I'd really like to try out your travel hacking service. What kind of results can I expect? That at the beginning was a really hard question because we had only done it for ourselves and, for a few very early customers. So yeah, talk to me, AJ, a little bit about kind of how that process went and like, what are the things that we can look at and be able to tell in advance how much money we're going to be able to save people on travel?
Yeah. So the main thing is, what their credit is, how much they can spend on a credit card a month without changing their spending profile, their preference for luxury or comfort. Do they want to fly in business or first class? Because like Eric was saying earlier, if you do have the miles, that's where the huge dollar savings come in. What you pay in taxes and fees versus what you could find on Kayak. And then ultimately their travel profile, where they want to go. If we've got somebody that, wants to go to Australia 5 times a year and they spend $600 on a credit card and have a credit of $630, there's, really we're not going to be able to return that, that investment for them. But somebody that's got good credit and they spend a decent amount on their credit card, and the people that we can absolutely crush it for is if anybody out there that has a business and they've got some expenses they put on a credit card, that's taking stuff to a whole new level. So those are kind of the main things, the credit, the travel profile, and then how much money they can put on a credit card each month without changing their spending habits.
Yeah, and so actually that was kind of where we ended up taking the pricing, right? Because ultimately we have to have sort of a way for people to self-select, and we want to put you into a plan that is going to be the best return on investment for you. So based on how many trips you're going to make a year and based on how much you can spend on a card, those were the 2 things that were our key indicators when we started having conversations with customers. And I think from a business perspective, that was one of the most valuable things that we did, is we talked to all of our customers at the beginning. We still talk to all of our customers, and getting that feedback, having people tell you what their questions are and tell you what their real travel goals are, really made it possible for us to zero in on that value that we could deliver for them and create a plan that was actually customized to what they wanted and was going to charge a price that was totally reasonable for them, based on what we were going to be able to deliver. So we did make, obviously, quite a few mistakes at the beginning. First one was we weren't charging enough at all for our business and first class plans.
Yeah, I think
we started out around like $50 a month for that.
Yeah. I think it was $50 a month. So that's only $600 a year and we were offering, it was like 3 or 4 business class round trips. So I mean, you're talking about saving somebody like $15,000 and just saying, "Can I have 600 of that?" We don't want to be greedy, but at the same time, there's no reason to undercut yourself when you're providing huge value to people.
Right, and what we did, so the pivot, the learning that we took from that was that we realized that we weren't sorting our customers properly, right? And so we had a couple of people show up for that $50 a month plan that we were delivering about $50 a month worth of value because they were only going to be able to get 1 business class trip a year. And so we kind of realized that when we had that first phone conversation, we set expectations, and the customer knew what was going to happen. But the people that showed up to that plan and had a huge number of miles in the bank already, and were spending $5,000 to $10,000 a month on credit cards, we were just taking a bath on those customers because we then were on the hook to do 4 or 5 bookings a year. And some of those bookings, take 3 or 4 hours to complete. And so, we were able to adjust to that pretty quickly. But it was, an interesting experience in that, you're not going to necessarily know until you start acquiring customers what the price point has to be to make it a viable business.
Yeah, definitely. I think the key takeaway there is it would have been, I think, really easy for us to try to strategize more and talk more about pricing and talk about how to pick the right customers. But it was the best thing we ever did was just have horrible pricing and launch a service and just kind of fly by the seat of our pants, because that's, the sooner you launch, the sooner you learn. You don't obviously want to just offer a complete shit product that's a scam and ask people for too much money. But if you know that you can deliver some value, just, think of a reasonable price, set it out there, and then you can recalibrate later on.
Yeah, exactly. And you're going to get better at delivering and fulfilling on that promise as you serve more customers, right? And so at the beginning, I think that comes back to your point about how we really valued having other entrepreneurs as customers, because they sort of understood, at the very early stages that we were in growing phase, and we had to figure out our systems. And so I think we got a little bit more patience from some of those people than we would have from just your average, consumer that expects a service to deliver, exactly what they promise to do. So being able to work with those customers that were a little bit more flexible, and trading off you and I spending a little bit more of our personal time with those people until we really got some systems figured out was a huge value, because ultimately now we're in a spot where we can serve those more mainstream customers. We can let them know exactly what they're going to get up front when we have that initial conversation, and then we can go set our systems in place to deliver it pretty much on autopilot for them from their perspective. So, we're just going through and managing that and giving them every couple months a few things to do to keep their results on schedule. And then when it's time to travel, they just submit a booking request and we book the tickets.
Yeah, I think there's a really big key takeaway there too, talking about you and I spending a lot of our own time doing things that don't really scale. I mean, everyone knows that if you've got a business and it's just you and the co-founder and maybe a VA or two, doing things yourself, it doesn't scale. You're not going to become a millionaire or billionaire doing that, but it was good to start doing that, like Erik said, to have those key learnings, to talk with our clients, and ultimately you need to get to critical mass somehow. And the beginning of this business is going to look a lot different than from a year from now. I mean, we're still spending a lot of our own time, having conversations with people on the phone, anyone that's curious about the service, and that'll most likely shift in the future, where we'll have the time, we'll have the customer base, and we'll be cash flowing a bit more to focus on more growth. But I do think it's a key takeaway to not be obsessed with scale right off the bat, and do things that don't scale to just get enough momentum to break through and have a real business.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, before we sign off today, I want to talk a little bit about the results that we have achieved. We're obviously extremely excited about what we're working on. And there's a few big highlights that I wanted to cover, a few things that actually went much better than planned. So the first thing is that we're getting even better credit results than we expected. So we, talk about credit quite a bit and protecting your financial credit health and your score and your report. And a lot of people came to us with that as their primary concern, that they wanted to make sure that what we were doing was not going to screw up their credit. And so we've been tracking credit for about 90% of our customers, and everyone who's been with us for more than 3 months has seen a gain in their credit score. And some of them have been pretty significant. Some of them have been as much as 30 or 40 or 50 points. So that's been extremely good. And the other thing is that people are doing really well getting approved for cards. So one of the things that we realized pretty early on is that a lot of customers were going to have to call reconsideration. I still have to call reconsideration at least 70 or 80% of the time. So it's super normal to not get instantly approved for these cards. And once we realized that was going to be really important for us to deliver value, we put some really good systems in place to make sure that customers were following through on that. And so we send those follow-up emails, we send some instructions, we send some videos and some audio so that they can hear me do a couple of reconsideration calls if they want to listen to that. And so far, we've gotten about 85% of the applications approved. And that's in the last 6 months. So some of those are still in reconsideration. I think the number of the failure number is less than 10%. So total applications, we've done a really good job. And we've helped people in the last 6 months earn about 4 million frequent flyer points just through credit card signups. The last highlight here is our redemptions. And obviously this is the fun part. This is where you get to use those points for free or almost free travel. And we've redeemed over 2 million miles for customers so far this year. And the total savings is over $83,000. So take the retail price of the ticket, subtract what our customer had to pay for that ticket, and the savings was $83,000. And that comes out to about 4.2 cents per point, which is really, really good. Our conservative estimates are usually around 2 cents a point. So we're more than doubling that up. And that means that all the value that we're giving people right now as we're recommending those cards, that just further validates that we're going to be able to get even more valuable travel for those customers when it comes time for them to redeem.
Yeah, that's a key thing for all you DIY travel hackers out there. Write that number down. 4.2 cents per point. That number matters because I'm not a statistician and I don't even know if it's a statistically valid sample size, but it's a hell of a lot better than one person booking 3 or 4 flights a year. So that's a decent metric, and that's something to shoot for and even see if you can do better than that.
Yeah, and another thing that's going to be really valuable, and we're looking forward to sharing this information with everybody once we've got it processed and we've got a little bit better sample size, is what we're redeeming for across each currency, right? So that 4.2 is the average. We've redeemed, I think, 15 different types of currencies so far. And so to actually know what the breakdown is, how much are we redeeming Delta miles, how much are we redeeming American, US Airways, United, and get those relative values so that you can kind of figure out where you should be focusing. That's going to help us craft our business for our premium customers, making sure that we're investing in the mileage currencies that are most valuable, but also better free content for you guys. The more information that we're able to aggregate, obviously we're going to share that. We think that the value of our business is us managing the details and taking care of all the hassle of doing it. But if you're keen on doing it yourself, more power to you. That's our experience as well. And so we're going to share as much of that free information as we can so that you guys can make better decisions about your travel hack.
So for anyone out there interested in the service, here is how it works. All you have to do is have a quick chat with us or fill out a form online. We'll ask you what kind of travel you want to do or plan to have, whether it's domestic or international, how many times a year you want to travel. And based on your credit and personal spending, we'll be able to give you an accurate assessment of how many flights per year we can get you, which cabin you will be flying in, and how much money you can expect to save with our service.
Yeah, look forward to talking with you guys. To do that, check out abroaders.com/premium. And you can fill out that survey there or schedule a time to talk with AJ or I and get that personalized travel consultation. Thanks a lot for being with us this week. This week's International Jam is a remix of High for This. The original artist is The Weeknd, and this one is the Knox Dubstep remix. I hope you guys enjoyed that and get some work done. Enjoy your travels wherever you are. Travel safe. We will see you next week, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard.
Come down with us! Extra high, come down!
Hey Brothers, don't be shy. Hop over to the website and join our email list for exclusive travel hacking content. If you like what we're up to, the best way you can support the show is by leaving us a 5-star review on iTunes. Lastly, we would love to hear from you, so send your show feedback to Erik or AJ at abroaders.com. We will see you next week.